Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Sustainability Dialogue. This evening, Kirk Allen is going to tell us about safe, clean water. Actually, this has to do with water runoff and how we can use that. And Stuart Wood, our executive director, will introduce Kirk in just a couple minutes. I usually take a minute or two at the beginning to wait for the stragglers to come in and remind people that these dialogues are videotaped, and it's almost impossible to record what you're saying properly if you don't speak into a microphone. I hope this one is on and you can hear me all right. But when it comes time to make comments or to ask questions, I'll ask that this microphone be brought to you, and I'd appreciate if you'd wait until it's there to use it so we can properly record this. And for the last couple of years, these dialogues have been posted on Sustainable Claremont's website, so it can be reviewed there anytime somebody wants to watch it. Also, I have up on the table a sheet where, if you're not already on the Sustainable Claremont mailing list and you'd like to be, if you'd put down your name and how to contact you, we'll burden you with that additional set of emails, which don't come too often. So at this point, I'll turn it over to our CEO, Stuart Wood, to introduce the program this evening.
Can you hear that? Okay. Thank you guys for coming out tonight to our 102nd Sustainable Dialogue on the Safe Clean Water Program. Before we get started, I just wanted to announce a couple of upcoming events here at Sustainable Claremont and some of our affiliated programs. On February 12th, there's a garden club meeting. On the 14th, there's another water pollution lecture at Pitzer College. We have our green drinks at our new venue at Last Name Brewing in Upland. On the 24th, there's a city sustainability meeting. On March 18th, now we're kind of going out into the future, our Arbor Day celebration, Earth Day on April 18th, and in May, we're going to have our first ever sustainable home tour. So a lot of things coming up in the next few months. Please subscribe to our newsletter if you're not already subscribed so that you can keep abreast of those programs. So tonight, we're very lucky to have Kirk Allen come speak to us about an important program that affects Claremont and the cities surrounding Claremont. Kirk is a senior civil engineer who's worked for LA County Public Works for more than 18 years. His education background includes a bachelor's in civil engineering from Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. And he's a professional civil engineer with a license in the state of California. Kirk has been involved with water resources management and water systems operations for the LA County Waterworks districts. Excuse me. This is a tongue twister, this resume you have. LA County Waterworks districts for most of his career. And he's been working on a team implementing the Safe Clean Water program for the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. He works in the water field and has spanned his time there for over 16 years. He's been involved in the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act implementation, the Integrated Regional Water Management Planning, Urban Water Management Planning, Antelope Valley Groundwork Adjudication, and Financial Water Rate Management for the LA County Waterworks District. Okay, thank you so much for coming out to speak to us, and now without further ado.
Okay, thanks everyone. Good evening, and I know it's taken a little while for me to actually get out here in front of you guys, but I'm glad we actually got to make that happen tonight. I'm excited to share the Safe Clean Water program, where we're at with this program, and what it means to your local community. So it's been long known that the region has not had a funding stream for stormwater management challenges. Without money, it was a sector that was more or less a fiscal orphan, unlike your water utilities that has water rates paying you monthly. Stormwater has not had a steady stream of revenue. So in 2012, the County Board of Supervisors looked at possibly getting a fee assessed on parcels in LA County, but they found out it needed a little bit more work on the drawing board because it was going to tax like potentially schools and nonprofits. So they went back and formulated a new program that was going to be community driven for the revenue generation. So the community-driven approach was led by a 27-member advisory committee that brought diverse and unique viewpoints to the development of the stormwater program. And that committee was made up of cities, agencies, community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, academia, and business. There were thousands of touch points during the development of this program. And yes, it took this much effort to develop the program, and it will certainly continue into the future. As the program matures, there will be elements that require adaptive management and public review. To ensure the program remains a valued resource for the region, it's going to take everyone to stay engaged with this program along the way. So the three main regional issues entailed in this program are improving water quality, increasing local water supply, and enhancing our communities. And we like to think of it as, the 3 C's that can help handle that for us is capture stormwater, clean it, and conserve it. So within the program, there are 5 overarching themes of the program. The first one on the left is collaboration. I think collaboration entails development perspectives for a unique and dedicated funding for multi-benefit stormwater projects, and if needed, technical assistance type collaboration. The second theme is asset management. I think we all know that when you build something, you have to maintain it. So management is a key for any utility, and this program funds O&M. That's very unique. Most programs funded throughout the state have not provided dedicated O&M funding. And it ensures investments for long-term resiliency and sustainability with an emphasis on nature-based solutions into funded projects. So the third theme here is engagement. I think engagement within our communities and oversight is embedded throughout the project stages for Safe Clean Water. There's dedicated investments into our disadvantaged communities. And there are full-time watershed coordinators to help build capacities and inclusion within the watershed areas that provide funding. So I'll get more into the watershed coordinators, but it's really nice that we have this coordination liaison amongst the watershed areas. The state had a program, that we modeled this off of, but those individuals will help bridge these gaps on connecting resources with the needs of ideas and so forth. The fourth thing is to ensure that we're good stewards of public funds. The voters passed this in November 2018, and through accountability, transparency, and reporting and auditing, we'll be able to show the taxpayers, how this program has been put to good use. And the fifth and last theme is education. I don't think there's any program that has success that doesn't have an education component to it. Within this program, there is public education as well as school and workforce training. I think that's going to be important to maintain projects into the future, and as well as collaboration with other programs that help maximize resources available to the region. So this funding generates revenue through a special parcel tax. It's not a fee, it's a tax. It places a 2.5-cent tax per square foot of impermeable area. And this will generate annually $285 million. Yes, that's right, $285 million annually over 10 years. That is $2.8 billion is what this program will generate for stormwater management. So, and this revenue will build regional and local watershed-based multi-benefit type stormwater projects. So one thing that we have built into this program is tax relief options. It's very unique. A lot of times the tax will get passed and there'll be no way to be exempt from this tax. So if you are a low-income, senior-owned parcel owner and you meet the low income threshold, you don't have to pay this tax. There's people that voted for this because they know its purpose for that, but there is a means to, to be exempt from the tax if you're in that category. We also have this equity tax relief option, the general income-based tax reduction. We expect that form to be available in February. And what that is, it gives very low and extremely low income households up to a 75% discount. So it's either 25 or 75% discount or reduction on your property tax bill for that fee. And then one thing that's really cool about this program is a credit program. So, maybe there's properties out there that have already built stormwater BMPs that are taking care of pollution and so forth on their properties. Well, if they're taxed under this program, they can apply for a credit. It's a very unique, it's a little complicated to go into all the math and the calculations, but, with these stormwater BMPs that are already in place, we want to reward those properties that have already invested in stormwater management. So this slide here kind of breaks down the three main pots of funding. You have the regional program, which is slated to gain or generate up to $142 million annually. You have the municipal program, which is your local return back to your cities. We'll get around $114 million, or 40% of the generated revenue. And then there's the 10% carve out for the flood control district program. So that's slated to gain about $28.5 million. And in total, it's approximately $285 million annually. So within the district program, I mentioned education. That's where we'll fund the stormwater public education, workforce training, school education. This 10% also pays for the administration of this tax, billing the tax to everyone and paying for that effort. And then what's left over will be put towards flood control district projects within flood control district right-of-ways. So here, I'll pause on this just in case there's anyone out there from a city that wants to know how much your local revenue is. But the reason why in order to get stakeholder support from the municipalities, we had to ensure that we were giving a portion back to the cities. And they have a maximum flexibility of their local return, but this was a big incentive for the cities to support this measure moving forward. So I know Claremont, I've tried to bold some of the cities here in this watershed area, but Claremont is slated to get around $590,000 annually to put towards stormwater management. Is there any other cities out there that are curious if you can't see what's up on the screen? Otherwise, I'll just keep moving along, but we do have all this posted on our website for anyone that is interested after this. So some of the responsibilities under the municipal program is to prioritize projects that assist in achieving compliance with your MS4 permit. And each city is required to prepare an annual plan for how they're going to expend the safe, clean water revenue to be used in the following fiscal year. So annually, you're going to prepare and share information containing up-to-date information on your use of revenue. It's that continued engagement with your stakeholders to ensure they know what you're doing with this revenue. Within the program, there's reporting and audit requirements. I think that's standard for transparency. And then engage with stakeholders in your planning process. If you're planning a project, I think this group right here can definitely foster some of that collaboration to engage your stakeholders and how maybe some of your local return can be put towards projects in your cities. So, and all these, the fund transfers all come with a fund transfer agreement. There are conditions on receiving funds and ensuring that you're in compliance with those requirements. Those fund transfer agreements will be coming out for public review within probably a month. So it's going to be important for your cities to take a look at those agreements just to ensure they're not caught off guard with some of the requirements of that. Everything should already be in the ordinances for this program, but that will be the standalone document for the transfer of funds. And then that last bullet there under responsibilities is a vector minimization plan. Anytime you're dealing with stormwater management, you're potentially creating habitat to breed mosquitoes, just for example. So in the sake of public health, you're going to make sure that you have those vector minimization plans in place, you need to consult with your local vector control district to ensure that your plan is in compliance with their standards. And one other thing I'll highlight here is maintenance of effort. I know this tax was passed in November of 2018, and some cities already had stormwater programs in place that they were putting revenue in, and you can put up to 30% of your Safe Clean Water local return back into those programs. We didn't want it all going back into pre-existing programs. We wanted to develop potentially new projects and newer programs with this tax. But it's there to also, help, some of your general funds that were supporting those programs prior to this program taking shape. So moving on, this is the 50% pot, the regional program. It provides funding primarily for the multi-benefit watershed-based projects. So the regional program is broken down into 9 watershed areas. This watershed area is the upper San Gabriel River. And I know we all like to talk about money. And within the regional program, the carve out for upper San Gabriel River is approximately $18.9 million annually. That's a lot of revenue to be putting towards, your stormwater initiatives within your region. So, and this is just a couple parallel maps. The map on your right there shows your city boundaries. The map on the left shows your WIMPs and EWIMPs. As we carved out the hydrology for each watershed area, we attempted to keep your WIMPs and EWIMPs whole, because of that effort that was already put into that planning effort. It was important to keep the watershed areas as whole as possible to stay in alignment with the WIMPs and EWIMPs.
Can you give a little background on the watershed management planning process, the EWIMPs and the WIMPs? Just a couple of sentences on the history of that.
Yeah, I'm not intimately familiar with the WIMPs and EWIMPs, but those are, a WIMP is a watershed management plan. So that is a geographic regions plan to comply with stormwater requirements. So the LA Regional Board, sets standards for pollution and discharges into the waterways. So those groups collaborate together within, coordinated watershed areas to ensure they're planning projects and programs to help address that MS4 permit compliance. So that was the initial planning phase for watershed management to comply with the regional board requirements for pollution. So if that covers it. So, and this is just a blow-up, closer view of this watershed area here. Obviously everything north of City of Industry and east of Baldwin Park and Irwindale kind of encompasses this watershed area. It does reach up into the National Forest. But basically, this watershed drains to the San Gabriel River and out to the ocean. So, it's subject to compliance with the regional board and MS4. So this slide here is just an overview of the 3 programs that can apply for funding or seek assistance through the regional program. And then the box in the upper right is the funding process. And I'm going to try to break this down over the next 6 or 7 slides. We can revisit it, but I'll just try to step through this one box at a time. So within the regional program, there are 3 sub-programs. There is an infrastructure program where funding within each watershed area has to be programmed into projects no less than 85% of that watershed area's revenue. Up to 10%, but not more, can go into technical resources program. And with the technical resources program, it helps develop feasibility studies through the support of district technical assistance teams. That's where the district will help prepare feasibility studies for projects. And it also provides revenue for your watershed coordinators. That's that collaborative entity that will help connect groups within the watershed area. And then up to 5% can go towards scientific studies, and I'll cover a little bit more later in slides. So a comprehensive list of project applicants can include any individual, group, business, or governmental entity, including but not limited to the flood control district, municipalities, watershed management groups, joint powers authorities, public utilities, special districts, schools, community-based organizations, nonprofits, and non-governmental organizations, NGOs. So that pretty much covers anyone can apply for a project money under this program. So non-municipal entities seeking funding must have a letter of support from the municipality that it will be built with in concurrence with that they will take over the O&M for the project. Non-municipal include anyone that is not from a city, such as your CBOs and NGOs. Projects can be funded at any stage of their process, including design, construction, land acquisition, and O&M. Projects must be included in a regional water management plan, such as your WIMPs or EWIMPs or your IRWMP plans. So this slide here just kind of covers some of the model projects that were thought of at the beginning of this program, and projects that capture water, improve water quality, local water supply, and public health, and invest in community enhancements. These types of projects align with the goals of the Safe Clean Water program. So, for example, you have the Green Street up there, Elmore Avenue. That is more of your neighborhood scale type project. Retrofitting like residential streets to capture rainwater for treatment and reuse for groundwater recharge. If you look at maybe a medium scale project such as Bassett High School, that is, that will include infiltration basins where they'll collect stormwater off of a channel, divert it under like a athletic field, and allow it to perk into the groundwater basin. So as long as the geology and the engineering is there to enhance, the local water supply, that those type of infiltration projects are kind of like your medium scale projects that are multi-benefit. And then you have your larger scale projects such as your wetlands projects. This one here is Dominguez Gap, and those have a lot of nature-based solutions to help treat polluted stormwater. They increase local water supply, they restore native habitats, and provide community with new walking, biking, and equestrian trails. So that's the larger scale type project that this program is aiming for. So infrastructure program project applicants, this is the process of applying for a project. So the applicant will submit their projects and feasibility studies through our project online scoring module. It is a very useful tool that will actually score the project for its benefits in water supply and water quality, so that you have a way to quantify the type of project that you're applying for. And it also will calculate life cycle costs for those projects. Upon submission, those projects are checked for completeness, and they will be forwarded to the Watershed Area Steering Committee for consideration for official scoring from the scoring committee. So, and the WASP will have watershed area specific priorities and processes beyond what is in the operating guidelines for these committees. So, like attendance at these governance committee meetings is highly encouraged by anyone that's interested in this funding process. You'll glean a lot more from those discussions that are happening within those steering committees. So, and then on the right, I do have the box there that shows the scoring committee, and the scoring committee is kind of like this third-party subject matter experts that look at the scoring for particular projects and rate the water supply, water quality, and community investment in nature-based solutions for projects. So within this process, you end up with projects that are scored and ranked, but the scoring of a project is just one element of selecting a project for funding. I think it's important that these watershed area steering committees understand the priorities within their watershed area. So without priorities, they won't be able to, they'll just look at a score and may not necessarily know what that project in particular is going to be addressing for the watershed area. So I mentioned the scoring. All regional projects that are applying for regional fundings must meet a threshold score of 60 points or more. So we break the scoring down into wet and dry weather water quality benefits. There's a section for water supply benefits, community investment benefits, nature-based solutions, and leveraging funds and community support for a total of approximately 110 points. And I'll go in a little bit more detail on some of these categories. So water quality scoring attempts to apply a cost effectiveness score for the project and tries to quantify how the project will reduce pollution. Point thresholds and equations were determined based on extensive stakeholder review of existing projects. But it's not to say the scoring is set in stone forever, but this is where we've started the program to at least start a benchmark for scoring projects. So the other portion of the water quality score is gives an applicant different methods to score the pollutant reduction that their project is going to achieve. Typically, smaller projects will use a concentration reduction in their pollutant versus larger projects will use a load reduction in scoring that component of their water quality score. So, and typically for like water supply benefits, water supply is attempting to apply the cost effectiveness of the water supply elements of the project and what is the magnitude of that supply benefit. So that was a way to try to treat each project equally across the board on applying a water supply benefit. So the community investment benefit scoring criteria, depending on the number of community investments that a project brings to the table, it can receive up to 10 points. Some of those benefits are, flood management, creation and enhancement or restoration of parks and habitat, improving public access to waterways, enhance or new recreational opportunities from a project, the greening of schools, reducing local heat island effect and increasing shade, increasing the number of trees and or other vegetation at the site location that will increase carbon reduction and sequestration and improve air quality. And basically to gain points for these, whether it's 2, 5, or 10, you need to explain why these are contributing that particular benefit. So one thing about this program is that it does try to prioritize nature-based solutions. If nature-based solutions are not utilized, it needs to have an explanation with supporting analysis why you couldn't incorporate nature-based solutions into your project. So for nature-based points, the project basically needs to implement a natural process, utilize natural materials, and removal of impermeable areas. So if you're taking out a parking lot, if you do that on a percentage base, you get more points based on turning some of this impervious area back into natural absorbing type surface. So, and the last category here is leveraging funds. I think everyone understands that it's important to, utilize other funds where possible. It helps move projects along faster. So if you can leverage up to 25% of the project cost, you get 3 more points. If you can leverage 50%, you get the full 6 points. And again, this is just to get to the threshold score of 60 points. So that's why it's multi-benefit is on all these scoring categories to ensure that you've tried to capture all these different types of aspects or benefits into your project. So, and then the last 4 points within the leveraging funds is, do you have support from your community-based organization? What about your non-governmental organizations? Do you have support from those local communities? It's important that, if you're going to put a project in a particular community, do you have their support? And if you do, surely they could provide you a letter of support to ensure that you have that support. So stepping back into our technical resources program, explain a little bit more about the TRP. Just skip through this slide. So, so within the technical resources program, the Flood Control District can provide technical assistance teams, and they would be comprised of subject matter experts within LA County Public Works or from our consultant list that we have on retainer. And basically, if you have an idea that you you just don't have the resources to develop into a completed feasibility study, into a pre-project application. The flood control district, if approved by the local regional steering committee, we will take that project on and develop a feasibility study, which will then make that particular project eligible for funding in future rounds of for the infrastructure program. So, and the other element under the technical resources program is your watershed coordinators, and I think I've mentioned, they're to integrate priorities through extensive networks that they will develop for your watershed area. They will help collaborate and help inform decision-making at the WASC level. They will help provide educational workshops where needed, and will provide that networking aspect for your communities. And this was modeled after the state-ran watershed coordinator programs. So jumping down to the scientific studies program, WASC can skip through this one. The Watershed Area Committee can select activities and projects, and the district will administer the scientific studies program. And what does the scientific studies program do? Well, it provides funding for monitoring, modeling, and other activities to help enhance and improve stormwater management and urban runoff capture, and help plan for potentially better projects within your watershed area. So, and then moving on into the funding process. So I've covered the technical resources program, the infrastructure program, where the projects are coming from, and the scientific studies program. All of those feed into your watershed area steering committee. And I mentioned here, your watershed area steering committee here is the Upper San Gabriel River WASC. And what they will do, they will develop a stormwater investment plan. So that is the budget for how they're going to program that $18.9 million. And that will go to a regional oversight committee, which will basically look at that investment plan and see, does it hit on all the Safe Clean Water Program goals established for the program? And if it meets the regional oversight's review and recommendation, it advances to the County Board of Supervisors to approve that budget, and that will go into funding those project applicants under the TRP program, the infrastructure program, and the scientific studies program. So just to give you a quick snapshot of what is a stormwater investment plan. It is a 5-year plan that lines out funding for the 3 sub-programs of the regional program, and it provides that budget for the current fiscal year to transfer to project developers subject to the transfer agreement. So these stormwater investment plans, they do cover 5 years. I need to highlight here is that in the 2nd through 5th years, these are conditional funding that is dependent on future WASC decisions. So just because they have 1 year budget doesn't mean years 2 through 5 will get funded, but it's a good indication, a strong indication that if your project maintains its schedule, stays on budget, that it will likely get funding in years 2 through 5. So, so within this program, that reporting aspect of it will be going back to the WASC. They will be seeing that your projects are on schedule, on budget, and on course to provide the benefits that they've stated. So, that's the critical check, is that if you wouldn't want to fund a 5-year project, if you knew after 2 years that it wasn't going anywhere. So that is this continued oversight of these steering committees to ensure your investments are going into good projects. So this slide here just kind of covers, basically I have 2 fiscal years, 2 years worth of revenue up on the screen. Right now we're in fiscal year 1920 tax revenue. If you look at the blue box on the far left under Q2, we just finished up the call for projects in December. And over the next quarter, we'll be developing those stormwater investment plans that I just showcased for you with projects. And then at the end of the 4th quarter, we'll be going to the board to approve those stormwater investment plans. And then at that point, we'll be able to execute agreements with applicants to hand over this funds to build their projects and implement their programs. And then every year, this first year has been a little bit rushed, a little bit consolidated, just because of when the measure got passed and when we were able to form these watershed area steering committees. But annually, there will be a open call for projects, such as the next fiscal year in yellow. It will go into another stormwater investment plan development phase, and then review and adoption of those stormwater investment plans, and then executing, fund transfer agreements. And this will happen annually, every year moving forward. So $18.9 million will follow this course every single year for Upper San Gabriel River. So I just want to highlight here, the Upper San Gabriel River is your Watershed Area Steering Committee. It is composed of 17 members. There are 5 agency stakeholders, there are 5 community stakeholders, and there are 7 municipal members that comprise of this 17-member committee. The district staff within flood control provide support to all these meetings. And the next meeting is Monday, February 10th. We have all these posted on our website, and I do have a slide with our website on it. But you should take some time and check out our website, check out our committee pages to ensure, you can see the names who are representing your particular areas, and ensuring, when you have project ideas, if you have time, it's good to engage with your representatives on these steering committees, because they provide your first-hand link to what's happening within your watershed area. And these meetings for Upper San Gabriel are held at the County Sanitation Districts at 1955 Workman Mill Road. So in this slide here is the anticipated implementation timeline as we see it now. It's covering January through July. So we sent the tax bills out to everyone in October. We have paid the first installment as of, I think, December 10th. The next installment will be due around April 10th. So we expect to have our full set of revenue approximately in May or June this year. And it's subject to any exemptions and reductions and appeals for that tax. And as far as the missile program, I mentioned there's an upcoming public review period for those draft transfer agreements. We will then be adopting those transfer agreements and executing those with municipalities. And then for the regional program, the 50% of the revenue, I mentioned we are in the development of our stormwater investment plans at each watershed area steering committee. That will advance to the regional oversight committee through April and potentially May. And then ultimately adopting those stormwater investment plans by the Board of Supervisors in June or July this year. So I just want to mention, the call for projects for the second year of funding will be open through the end of July. So if you are contemplating any projects for this next round of stormwater investment plans, definitely engage with either me or your local watershed area steering committee, or some of your other collaborative groups that may potentially co-fund some of your projects to help flesh those ideas out. And then as far as the district program, I do highlight here is that we will be soliciting for your watershed area coordinators, and that solicitation is expected to come out in May, and then we'll have a pre-proposal meeting and submission of bids probably in May, and onboarding of your watershed coordinators potentially in June or July. And some of these watershed coordinators, that they will help some entities out there that need resources. They will help connect you with the technical resources that you need to advance your projects to a submission stage for this program. So they're going to be a critical link for this program overall. So with that, I know I've covered a lot here. There's ways to get a hold of us. This is a program that has been developed, but as you get up to speed with this program, and if you have questions about this program, please do reach out to us. We have the 800 number, we have the email address, and we have a ton of information on our website to download and start getting familiar with. If you do have projects that you're looking at investing and exploring further, do reach out, and we're always there to assist and help in any which way we can. So with that, I will open it up to anyone that has a few questions. I'm glad to try to answer. In the back?
I've got a couple of questions. First one's pretty quick, I think. You were projecting $285 million in revenue per year, roughly. What percentage of that would actually be spent directly on projects?
So on project, it depends. Like 40% of your municipal program could go towards projects. We don't know what cities are going to propose, but of the, it would be 85% of the 142 million that would go towards infrastructure projects. That's one of the requirements of the regional program. Is that I'll just skip back through some slides here.
I guess I'm thinking what, in terms of a breakdown between actual money actually being spent on projects as opposed to funding the overhead expenses of operating this whole system.
Yeah, so I don't have a calculator in front of me, but approximately 85% of 142 million has to go towards projects.
85% of 142, so we're talking maybe 50% roughly.
So maybe 100
be going toward projects.
115 million approximately.
Okay, and the second question I had was, what is available as far as educating people in cities and other organizations as to what kinds of projects are most efficient, both from a monetary standpoint as well as from a water processing standpoint? Because I'm sure a lot of people have not done this before and would need some help to come up with ideas for projects and how to design them and what are the best ones and what are the most efficient ones and what sort of help is available to probably the hundreds, if not thousands, of people out there who are going to be, you know, coming up with projects and planning projects and that sort of thing.
Yeah. One of the neat things that we have within this program is we have an online project submittal portal, and you can start playing around with that submittal portal with an imaginary project. You can start looking at, you know, what do you envision for a water quality component of that project? What is your water supply component? You can just make up something, and you can start playing around and running that model as you would submit a project. And you will come up with there's a way that we've tried to build in a cost effectiveness calculation into each of those categories for water supply and water quality. And that will give you a rough idea of, you know, what would be the typical cost of a project. And definitely after this first round of stormwater investment plans, there's probably going to be 30 projects that have cost figures associated with their benefit. You know, if they're providing a certain capacity, you will have a back of the envelope way to calculate what those costs are on a capacity standpoint. You know, typically your infiltration type projects, if you're putting water into the ground, is about $1 million per acre foot. That's roughly the cost on an infiltration type project. So if you're treating and releasing, you know, it depends on the technology that you put into treating, you know, the stormwater and improving the water quality. But there are metrics out there and built into the scoring criteria that can help, you know, kind of narrow down that cost of projects. So, and we have staff that, you know, that can help applicants through that process. You know, if you're considering submitting a project and, you know, just roughing out some numbers. You can get your own login to this project submittal portal and, you know, start submitting, you know, project ideas and components that you're considering. So I hope that comes close to answering your question. Anyone else? Up front.
I'm curious what you consider to be water runoff. If there's water that's run off of the hillsides, is that runoff, or are you talking about runoff from streets and that sort of thing? Or is there a distinction in your mind between the two?
I mean, it's all stormwater, but your urban runoff is within your constructed surfaces that's running off into your streets, which are basically conduits.
So if in our hills here, we have rain that comes down behind our dams and so forth, that would be included?
Yeah, that's potentially a water supply benefit that you could utilize on a project. So.
So this is probably going to be really hard to answer because it's probably dependent on what projects come in. But I'm just wondering if at any point there's been kind of a program-wide prediction of overall benefits in terms of the amount of acre-feet of new supply and amount of quality.
Yeah, we have those metrics in the suite of projects that have been submitted. So we have a rough idea what is kind of in the shadow of projects that may potentially get funded. But that is one key thing of like as a project gets built, there's continuous reporting on the project. Like, is it delivering all the benefits that it stated? Is it infiltrating the capacity that it said it would? Is it reducing the pollutant loading on its capture feature? All that will be determined. But we're just in the early stages of funding projects, so without projects in the ground, we don't have that metric yet. But we do have the modeling data, the scoring criteria to at least start a benchmark for what are the potential benefits that seem to be most likely to occur on that project, and that's what we'll be monitoring moving forward and reporting on.
Has that been? I'm sort of thinking about program-wide over the 10 years that you're talking about. Has there been any extrapolation going forward of what those total benefits would be? And obviously, we'd have to be very ballpark, but is there?
Yeah, I know what we will have. We will have a benefits dashboard, and that will start feeding in all these projects and what they're delivering. There's a lot of projects that have already been implemented at the WIMP and EWIMP levels, and the Safe Clean Water projects will just be new and a component of the benefits that are already existing through various funding efforts. So.
Thanks.
Have any projects within Claremont already been proposed, or have any proposers tentatively contacted you? And if so, what is the status of each of those and who's proposing them?
So I don't have that status right here. All the projects have been posted online by, if I could pull up the internet, I could definitely show you, what projects have been submitted. Do you have access to the internet here, or? Okay. Yeah. So we do have that. I just don't have it ready for you tonight. In the back.
Thanks. I'm now thinking seriously about a project and proposing for putting in a proposal for funding, but I'm thinking through the logistics of the financial end. If a nonprofit applies for funding, is the funding upfront, or as money is spent, then you apply for a reimbursement of those funds? How would that actually work?
So one thing that was a stakeholder-driven requirement is that we provide the funding up front. So if you apply for $3 million and the steering committee awards your project $3 million for that budget, that fiscal year, you get a transfer of $3 million in that transfer agreement up front.
Wow.
So at the end of that fiscal year that you've been billed for that tax revenue, you would enter this process of selecting projects, and if that project gets selected, it would have the money up front. So it's a very important thing that is part of this program.
Is there something on the website that shows you how to steer through the evaluation of runoff from paved surfaces that are non-vehicular versus those that are vehicular? Because there's so many more pollutants, so many more metals, for example, on vehicular surfaces.
Yeah, under the WIMS model, the watershed area model that's been built into the scoring tool, it does have that preloading. If you assign the tributary area, it has water quality data to help model what that runoff is in that particular area. But you need to delineate that within your project area to ensure you're capturing the pollutant and the runoff that you're stating. So it's part of the submittal model, has that water quality monitoring data.
As far as the appeals process goes, I'm sure I need to be careful here because I invited you, and I don't want to raise the fact that you can appeal how much impermeable area is on
Right.
your, I don't know how widely known you want that, but I will share that I tried to map my own, and my fee went up by $50, so I'm not going to be appealing my yard. But I'm wondering about things like, you know, if I installed cisterns or swales that kept water out of the gutter and the storm drains. Are credits going to be given for private property owners who make those kinds of improvements?
Yeah, if you've installed a stormwater BMP, one thing about the credit program is that you do have to have a registered civil engineer sign off on your application. You know, if it's small and simple and something you did yourself that you did not permit, it's not going to be eligible for the credit program. But getting back to your question about the appeals, that, you know, I didn't explain anything on these slides on how we arrived at assigning an impermeable area throughout the region, but we did fly it with aerials and LiDAR and established impermeable versus permeable area, and that parcel's impermeable area is taxed at 2.5 cents per square foot. We have an online tool that you can quickly go in and check your concrete, your roof line, and if we are overtaxing you by more than $25, you are eligible for a corrected tax bill. And it's a very slick process. It's very easy to go in and, you know, draw your impermeable areas to ensure we're only taxing you for what, you know, we stated on the ballot. So if I had the internet, maybe I'll share some links with you, and then you can share back with the group and stuff. Just, you know, it's definitely nothing we don't want to not showcase. I mean, that was built into the program to ensure that if you need a credit, you know, and you've invested into stormwater management, you need to pursue that credit. And if we have overtaxed your parcel, please let us know and we'll correct it.
I was sort of waiting till everybody went through their comments. I would like to give you a different approach, just some ideas, and for especially the participants that are here, because I'm on the clean water side. I'm at Three Valleys Water. This is a great program. It's been a long time coming, and it's here. What I would suggest to especially the residents of each community are going to have to participate. That's what's going to keep the costs down. If they don't try to keep projects on a local level, it's going to cost more money. To give you an example, one of the things that has already taken place here is Claremont, Laverne, San Dimas, and Pomona have teamed up and they formed a JPA. And that JPA, the staff people of each of those agencies are working together to try to make things better in a lot of different ways, both working with what you have and because of the dollars that are going to be involved. But if you sort of look at the big picture, this just being stormwater, there's so many other avenues that are going to take place, and the people that you have involved that were on that list right there, most of those people I know 80% of them, but so they are involved, and that's a good thing. What's happening though beyond this, right now, Public Works is talking about $285 million a year. I just came back from a project 2 weeks ago, and some of you have heard of the Carson Project, which is a metropolitan project. Just to put things in perspective, here you're dealing with water that's on your streets, and you're taking it and moving it into hopefully a JPA that will work within that. But the other is sewer water. If we have to, without this program, you're going to be hopefully in my lifetime. I'm hoping I'm still around when it all takes place. But down in Carson, they're coming up with taking an LA County sanitation facility, and they're taking the water from there and they're moving it over through a pilot project at Metropolitan that we're putting together. Just so everything is in perspective, here you're talking $285 million a year. To do this project for 150 million gallons a day is $3.4 billion. That's with a B. That's number one. Number two, to maintain that system is another $125 million a year. Now, out of that system, that will give you a couple of pump stations. It's also going to build 60 miles of pipe, and it's going to take it all the way up to the upper San Gabriel River at the sort of, if you put it in where you know it easier, the 210 and the 605. It's going to dump it there, and we'll have an opportunity to pick that water up, which will benefit all of us. But I just want, especially the participants here tonight, to understand there are so many things going on there. This is just one spoke in the wheel. And again, hopefully in my lifetime, I'll get to see a lot of it, but it's going to take time. And this, again, by starting when they did, it's, you know, a little too late, but we're there. And at least it's moving in that direction. So I think it's a good thing for Public Works to be at the steering mechanism of this whole project. But I just want people to understand, when they do that project down there in Carson, if you think this water is going to be expensive, the water that's going to come out of that project is $1,826 an acre foot to get it up where it's at. And then they got to get it to you. So think about it. That's, you know, now you're up over $2,500 an acre foot to start. So this, again, just my opinion as one old water guy. This is a great project, and I hope it moves in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you for that perspective.
So looking at this slide, it looks like maybe 7 of the 12-ish cities in the upper San Gabriel are represented on the Watershed Area Steering Committee. Those cities that aren't listed, how are they staying abreast of the process and of the opportunities?
So, so each municipality is encouraged to attend their Watershed Area Steering Committee. So when we went through the process of assigning these municipal member seats, they were self-selected amongst the cities within each watershed area. So, you know, I think every 3 years, these seats will be up for reselection. So there may be some rotation, you know, between municipalities, but regardless of whether they have a seat or not, it's important that collaboration continues to be a part of this program. So just because you don't have a seat doesn't mean you don't have a say in what that steering committee is advancing. So.
I just want to be clear. Brian's comments, I think, on the Carson project have really to do with sewage reclamation and avoiding dumping the treated sewage into the ocean. But my understanding now from my brief discussion with you beforehand is that these monies are really aimed at stormwater. And if we were to, as we have been trying for some time, to reclaim our sewage and use it for landscape irrigation, which would be a big savings, that's not eligible under this program.
Yeah, I would have to look a little bit closer, unless there was a way that you're blending stormwater with on-site gray water, black water retention. I haven't seen one of those kind of projects, so I'm just trying to think through it. You know, you might be able to spin it that way, but I can definitely look into this further and try to draw a line somewhere for you.
Yeah, I would guess that, you know, we might, in fact, we were thinking of a sewage/stormwater project, but we'd probably get the funding for the portion of it that would be treating stormwater and pumping it, doing something with it.
Right.
Yeah, but, you know, it would help. It would help
Yeah.
the project.
I don't know how the regional board would look at that, you know, as a whole, combining the two, but that would be a good conversation to have early, so.
Are there any more questions? Oh, yeah. I know.
This is just a teeny bit nitpicky. I really appreciate that you're encouraging stakeholders to come to the Watershed Steering Committee meeting, except for you don't have a time on there. So,
Yeah.
what time is it?
I'd have to look it up on my phone. So typically they either start at 10 or 1 in the afternoon. But if you go to our website, under safecleanwaterla.org, there's a whole page dedicated to committees. There's a drop-down menu, and then from there you can find San Gabriel River Watershed Area Steering Committee, and you have the whole list of dates that have been scheduled through March.
One last question. You're calling it safecleanwaterla.org. Why not call it stormwaterretentionla.org?
Yeah, no, that's a great comment. You know, how the ordinance was written, it was written as Safe Clean Water, and that's how the name stuck, so.
Okay, any more questions? All right, well, thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you, Kirk, for giving us this
No,
presentation.
thank everyone for your attention.
Appreciate it.
And like I said, if you have questions after leaving tonight and stuff, you know, do write our numbers down, maintain contact with your group here, and reach out to us. We're glad to help answer questions as they come up. So with that, thank you.